Welcome to the Final Offer podcast. Today we have Pauline Donnelly from Donnelly and Donnelly and Co. in Back Bay here in Boston. Pauline has been in the industry for almost 20 years now.
Almost 20 years, yeah.
I also go back almost 20 years with Pauline. We were both at Coldwell probably at the time. I've done deals with her. I've worked with her as a coach. I've worked for her as an agent. Someone that I really respect in the industry, and I'm delighted to have you on the podcast today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
I know. As I go through all of this, I realize how we've dealt with each other, or how you've dealt with me in so many different capacities, and I appreciate the patience. I know. Some of us faster than others. So when did you come over from the UK?
So, believe it or not, it's more than 30 years. I arrived
30 years.
Yeah, 30 years. I came over here to get my master's degree, and I worked in a completely different industry for 10 years before I entered the real estate world, and really got into... I have a master's in education, and specifically special education.
Okay.
Which comes in very handy.
Yep.
In the real estate world.
You said it.
And I said it. It has given me lots of patience and understanding and good listening skills. Let's put it that way. And so I worked in the disability services world for about 10 years, primarily with adults around disability and employment issues, and really loved that work. But I got to a place where I was really making lots of sideways moves, and the only way to go up and be promoted in that field was to go back to school and get a PhD, and it wasn't really something I was interested in doing. And I had bought and sold a lot of my own properties, and fairly in my 20s. So as a young woman, I had been involved in a lot of personal real estate transactions, and I just was always fascinated with real estate, and the process didn't stress me out, it excited me, and I worked with an agent who suggested I got my license.
Working here in Boston, even on the education side?
I was in Massachusetts, in and around Boston. So I got my license. I didn't really do anything with it because I still had a full-time job, and then I got to a place where I decided to take the leap and decided that I would give real estate 6 months to see, one, whether or not I liked it, and two, whether or not I could make a decent living doing it. And I think at month 5.5, I got my first listing, and the rest is history. I stayed with it.
That's interesting. So when you came into the industry, did you just go out as a sole agent, or were you working with a team, or were you working as an assistant for somebody?
So I was a sole agent, and I called a few different real estate firms. I didn't really know much about the real estate world in Boston, and I called a few firms. I paid attention to who was doing most of the business in the city, and called a few firms and said, I'm a brand new licensee, I'm looking to make my start in real estate, would you be willing to interview me? And I got my start with Coldwell Banker. So I worked in the Beacon Hill office of Coldwell Banker. That office doesn't exist anymore.
No,
in 2004. It was a great office. I had a great manager and a great set of colleagues. I had a really good experience as a brand new agent.
Who did you interview with?
Bruce McLean.
Okay, I remember Bruce.
Yeah. And actually, I'll share this with you because you do remember Bruce. He just passed away. So that was very sad. I owe my start in real estate to Bruce McLean. He was a great manager.
He was, and smart man, being willing to give you a shot.
Yeah.
Not to get off of you and into my story, but I had to interview with Ken Detunjan like 5 times to get him to hire me.
Did you?
Believe
that's
that.
Ken.
Myself, and I wasn't even brand new. I had been in the industry.
That's right.
So you started Coldwell, you get your run, and then to me that seems just so impressive, and I can't imagine. I grew up around here, and I had a lot of connections and a lot of network around here, and I think undoubtedly that was what was able to help me get going the way that I did. But you come here and you don't really know anybody. You don't really know anybody in the industry, and you get in, and how do you start building that business?
It was tough, and I will say I worked really hard. At the time I was single, so I relied solely on myself for my income.
Yeah.
And I was hungry and I was motivated. And I say this all the time to my agents, you can't teach hunger. You either have it or you don't. And I immersed myself in the industry. I learned as much as I could. I helped other agents in the office. I'd do open houses for other agents at Coldwell Banker to meet buyers that way. And I just developed the ability to talk about real estate all the time. So no matter who I was with, who I was interacting with, I always tried hard to weave real estate into the conversation. And it took time to build relationships, but you'll know this, Kevin. Once you start to do business begets business. So you get a listing, you meet buyers, you have an opportunity to market your listing, market yourself. Other people are interested in talking to you about listing. You close your first deal with a buyer. You ask them who else do they know that might need your services, and it builds on that.
It only builds, I think, if you can earn their trust, right? Which I think is part of what you're saying, and being hungry and working really hard and doing the right things for all of these people, because they're not referring you to their friends if they don't trust you.
Correct. And they don't, and if they've not had a good experience. And all joking aside, with the background that I had, I do think it helped me develop trusting relationships, to listen well, to understand, read people, read the subtext. And so I really prided myself on giving my clients a good experience so that they would come back to me and would refer me to their friends, colleagues, family, and so on. So it worked. I had pretty spectacular first year in the business, considering it was I think I did 8 million in 2004, my first year in the business, and dollar per square foot was about 50% of where it is today. No. So I had a pretty good year, but I worked hard that year.
I remember those, like when it was like the top of the market was like $700 a foot.
Yeah. I remember the first time we broke $900 a square foot. Like, we thought it was crazy.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Here we are today.
So you do $8 million, and then how long did you sell real estate for?
About 8 years, and then trailed off 8 to 10 years because I took a position as sales manager with Coldwell Banker. So I was co-managing with Kent Tunjan.
I was there.
Beacon Hill office. Yeah, you were there. The Beacon Hill office, and at the time there were 2 Back Bay offices at Coldwell Banker. So I did that for about 12 months, which was an incredible experience, actually, to see the other side of the table and really understand the operations of a real estate firm and understand what's happening behind the scenes, understand just what makes a real estate firm run, and the support that goes into working with the agents.
So was that all you were there for? You were only there for 1 year?
It was only 1 year, and the reason I left that role was my then husband, now husband, we made a move to DC just for a very brief period of time for work for him, and I made the decision to leave Coldwell Banker and make that move with him.
That's what it. I mean.
Yeah. That's marriage.
That's marriage, right?
That's marriage. I continued my real estate. I mean, so what I did do in anticipation of that move, I actually got certified as a coach. And as I made that transition, I essentially founded a real estate coaching business and worked with, I had coaching clients in the Boston area and then coaching clients in the DC area. I was able to take advantage of my Coldwell Banker connections, and I had a lot of connections with Coldwell Banker agents that I coached in the DC area. Yep. And I came back and forth a lot for that 12. We were only in DC for 12 months. And then when I came back to Boston, we moved back to Boston again. My husband got a job back in Boston. I continued that coaching business for another 2 years. So I did that in total for 3 years.
Yeah, I was one of your students.
Yeah. Are you saying you owe your success to me, Kevin?
In some way.
Some of it, not all of it. I give you some credit.
So your last year in real estate, though, like you were doing big business at that point in time. Like, do you remember what your totals were when you were before? I was
probably Again, I like to say to the agents that have only been doing this for a few years, dollar per square foot was a lot lower. My last year in the business, I think I did 25 million, which was a lot back then.
Yeah, and you were. I remember the time when you came in and you were coming in as a manager. I was like, why is she doing that? Because you had
Right.
such good. You had built a business over in Beacon Hill at that point in time. You were a household, in my opinion, anyways. As a
Yep.
you were a household name in Beacon Hill. Like you were owning the market over there. To put in a little bit of a sports, it was like Barry Sanders retiring on top. I was like, why is she leaving right
Why
now?
did I do it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a difficult decision. I'll be honest, I think I needed a break. This is a
yeah.
24/7 job. I had an amazing assistant that left me to move back home to upstate New York, and I couldn't replace her. I didn't find anybody else to replace her. And I just think I needed a break from it.
Yeah.
And they offered me this opportunity, and I was like, let me try this.
It can't, and it's funny, like you say, you need a break. And how many agents I've talked to, or how many people I've talked to over the years that are like, oh, I'm going to get into real estate because there's all this flexibility and this and that. And at the end of the day, you're a business owner. And if you're not willing to pick up the phone 7 days a week on holidays and do whatever, then
Nope,
there isn't flexibility in there. You know,
there's no flexibility. No.
where you want to be, but if you want to be successful in there, you've got to be willing to work, and that's
Yeah.
probably one thing that I've seen true. And you look around the landscape of Boston and all the people that do well here and that continually sell millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate, the one common probably thread is time, right? They've all 20 plus, 30
Yeah.
plus years in the business and have just continued to show up every
Yeah.
single day.
Yeah, it's a business of longevity. And I would say there's no luck in real estate. My
Right.
agents say to me, how do you think so and so is doing so well? Or why has that agent got so much business? And I say, there's one thing, it's hard work. It's no
Mhm.
luck, hard work.
I totally agree with you there. So you leave and you take the managing. You alluded to the fact that you wanted to learn what it was like on that side of the business. Was a long term goal always to get out and start your own firm? And
No, that's a great question. And I can honestly say it wasn't. I think I needed a break. I think I also I'm one of those people that constantly needs change. And I think I just was interested in learning a little bit more and rounding out my real estate experience. But I had not thought about opening my own firm. I have a master's in education and I'm a teacher at heart. And I'll say about the experience as a manager, I really enjoyed learning sort of the operations side of the business. But the thing I loved the most was the coaching. That was a part of what I did.
yeah,
And I'm going to embarrass you here, Kevin, but you and I used to I think we met every single week.
yeah,
And I loved coaching you because you were a sponge and you wanted to learn and you wanted to grow your business. You had that hunger that we talk about.
yeah,
And yourself and other agents that I coached during that year, I saw unbelievable growth. And I just started to think, wow, there's something to this coaching thing, which is what led me to go get a certification in it to like really understand how to coach.
sure,
And so I think initially I just had this dream to be in this coaching role because I enjoyed that so much. And then what happened was I had a great coaching business and I loved the 3 years that I was doing that. But I found myself coaching my clients, and let's say I helped them prep for a big listing appointment, and then they would leave my office and I found myself wanting to follow them. And I wanted to talk
yeah,
to them the next day.
sure.
And I wanted to go on that listing presentation with them. And I wanted to find out how
Yeah,
it
you
had
want back
gone.
in the action,
I wanted to be back in the action. And here I am. That's what
right?
I did. I got back in the action.
That's funny. I remember when you came over from Coldwell, and one of the big reasons that I went to Coldwell at the time, having coming in from starting my starting Charlesgate, was I wanted to get into the high end of the market, and I wanted to
Yeah.
to grow the business and do more sales, and there were a lot of successful people that were there at the time. But when I got there, everybody just held everything so tightly to the vest.
Right.
Like you
Right.
couldn't have, and I think that the industry's changed since then because now people are a lot more open with how they're doing things or how they're building their business. And but at that point in time, no one would say anything to anybody else. They just viewed them as a
No.
competitor. And so there was no
Correct.
one there that was willing to help. So when you came into that role, it was a little bit of a godsend for me because now you're fresh out of the business, and to be able to talk through, hey, how are you doing this? That was invaluable to me because I
Right.
had somebody that was we were probably doing somewhere around the same amount of business, and to be able to take it to the next level. And I loved working with you, and which is why I came back and worked with you again, and when you were in the coaching role. But I do remember saying to you one time, I was like, you're coaching all of these people. Why don't you just go out and start an office?
I know you did. I know you said
Oh,
that to me. Finally listened to you, Kevin.
well, that's good. That's good. So, and you guys are right across the street from us now, and so I can actually see you in your office if I look out the window. But
So you can tell everybody I'm in my office all the time,
all the
right?
time, right? It's one of those things. It's no different from when you're an agent, right? If you want it
Nope.
to work and to be successful and your name's on the door, you better be in there setting a good example for everybody else. So along those lines, you coached, you were manager at Coldwell, you went out, you had the coaching business, and now you start your own company. And so what type of agents were you trying to recruit? Or when you thought of, hey, this is Donnelly Co., this is my name on the door, what was it? What were the business principles that were just non-negotiable to you in terms of bringing the right agents in?
Yeah, it's a great question. I really wanted to create an environment, and I believe I've been successful in doing so. An environment that I wish I had when I was a selling agent. And that was an environment where I liked my colleagues, I trusted my colleagues, I could engage with them, and we could learn from one another. I wanted an accessible manager, somebody that would pick up the phone if I needed help to problem solve something or help dealing with a difficult situation. An office that had great administrative support and could take the burden of marketing off the shoulders of the agents. So because I had been a top producing agent, I knew what agents needed because I'd been one. And I really wanted to create an environment that would offer all the things that I knew agents needed. And I would say in terms of the agents that I like to hire, anybody watching my business will see that I have grown slowly, and that has been intentional because I am extremely selective in who I recruit. I don't just fill desks. I'm not about having warm bodies on my roster.
Yep.
I want agents who are career agents. It's a full-time job for them. I want agents who have integrity, who are honest, who are professional, agents who don't have egos, and agents that are not going to bring drama to the office, but agents who are hardworking, want to grow, appreciate the support that I offer, are interested in coaching with me to grow their business, recognize that we all can grow, myself included, and agents who support and collaborate with one another. And I can honestly say I have been successful in doing that. I truly believe my team embodies all of those things.
Yeah, when I look at your roster, there's not, which is, it sounds weird to say it, but there's not anybody that I don't like that works at your company.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a good team.
It is. It is a good team. And your agents they're all good agents. They'll know what they're doing. You get into a deal with them and they actively participate in the deal versus showing up to collect a paycheck, which is nice. So is part of the deal when you come in, are they required to come in and see you and meet with you weekly or bi-weekly for coaching and come in and put a business plan together and actually have action items that they've got to actually do things while they're there?
I would say not required. You guys are independent contractors. You know that it's hard as a broker owner to require that. It's a resource that's offered to them, and everybody accesses my coaching differently. I have agents who just call me when they need me. We're in the middle of a transaction, that might be every day. I have agents who schedule time with me and we meet every single week. Sometimes it's for 10 minutes. It's just a quick check-in. Agents that just call me and schedule time when they need me. So everybody is different. I do encourage a business plan. I was a big believer in business plans when I was selling. And it's been a really busy month for me because I have a business plan template that I share with the agents. And it's an opportunity to evaluate your business from last year and then set some goals for the next year. And I would say most of them do it. And then they sit down and we go through it together. So I would say it's not mandatory. You don't have to sit down and coach with me, but why wouldn't you?
The resource is there, and I feel like, if nothing else, it's more of it's a checks and balances, right?
Yeah.
To do what you're actually saying that you set out to do, and I think that's helpful for everyone in the industry to have a level of accountability to do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. It's a
That's
lonely business. It is a lonely business. And I say to the agents all the time, you probably have the right answers, but sometimes it's helpful to just talk it through with somebody else. And I'm often just that. I'm just a sounding board for the agents to talk
right.
something through, problem solve. I'm a little bit more distanced from the situation, and so sometimes they can find that helpful.
But still, it's close enough where it's not that long ago that you were out there,
No.
so and can relate to a lot of the issues that come up,
Yeah.
and I think be strategic on how you respond versus reactive, which I think is a
So
big.
important. And listen, I keep my skills sharp. I'm not sitting at my desk and twiddling my thumbs all day long. I'm talking to buyers, I'm talking to sellers, I'm talking to the agents all the time. But the agents will bring me on a listing presentation. They'll bring their buyers into the office. I'll get involved in negotiations. So I feel like I have the best of all worlds. I'm still
Yep.
really
And
acting on what's going
I'd
on.
love to slide you. I'd love to slide you in a listing presentation. Especially if you start talking and then the accent comes out too, and they're like, "Oh, now she's got to know what she's talking about." Right?
She must be smart. She's got an English accent. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes
It's
it works, not always.
play to your
Oh,
audience.
yeah.
That's awesome. So I am so happy for you that all of that has worked, that it works out, and you guys
Thank you.
continue to grow over there. And it's been, from where I sit, it's been a ton of fun to watch because I'm on the other side of the street in a couple different ways. I sent where we've got, I don't even know how many agents in this office anymore, but I can tell you that I'm
It's about
sitting,
800, right?
yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
sitting in 8,000 square feet alone right now. So
right.
it's not always the numbers always don't speak the loudest. So it's funny when we were developing Final Offer and we said, hey, we've got to get out and certain people. Obviously, you were at the top of the list for a number of reasons. One, because I figured if you thought that I was crazy with this thing, you would tell me that I was
Hmm.
crazy. And the amount of respect that I have for you as a person and a friend. And I was like, if there's someone here I've got to bounce this off of, it's Pauline. And when I brought it to you, and you guys have, you've jumped in with 2 feet and helped us present it to your agents. What was it about Final Offer that you were attracted to?
Yeah. I will say, Kevin, you've always been so supportive of me, and I've been very appreciative of your friendship over the years. And when you called me and said, hey, I'm working on this platform, I'd love to come in and talk to you about it, I was like, okay, I'll do this for Kevin. You came in, I'll be honest, I did not really know what you were going to talk to me about. And I think we sat down that first time with a couple of your Final Offer colleagues for about
Yeah.
3.5 hours.
Yeah.
And I was blown away, really. I think to bring, and I know we use this word so much, but to bring transparency to the whole buying and selling process for both buyers and sellers and agents, that gets me excited. Because
Yeah.
I think our industry, in many respects, has devolved over the last few years, and a lot has been as a result of tight inventory. We've got so many properties transacting off market. My agents will tell you I am not a fan of off market sales for a myriad of reasons that we can and
Yep.
cannot go into, depending upon time.
No, I agree with you. If you're selling something off market, you're not exposing it to the entire market.
No,
And to me,
no,
we don't do it unless the seller comes and says, "Hey, I've got this situation going on, and we've got to do something
correct.
quick and quiet." In which case, they're making the call.
Yeah,
But
my argument is, and agree completely. And do we sell things off market? 100%. And that's when there are extenuating circumstances, and it is specifically the request of the seller. My issue is, I don't believe we as an industry are really doing everything we should be doing to inform our sellers of the pros and cons of selling off market. So it's
right,
more an educational thing. If the seller chooses to sell off market, I ask my agent, do they understand the risks in doing so? And that's the most important thing, that we've informed them the
right,
pros and cons of doing it. Final Offer for me, I give you guys so much credit because change is hard in our industry. People don't take kindly to it.
right,
I think we have an industry, and I think we have a culture in Boston where change is difficult and people are suspicious of change. But I think what you guys have done is a game changer for our industry, and I was very excited to adopt it right from the beginning. And as we have the enterprise level agreement with you guys, all of my agents, I pay for all of my agents. If they want to use it, then we cover the costs.
Right.
And we've had some great successes with it so far. Our sellers, if we have a seller that uses Final Offer, they are beyond excited by the results.
How tough have your agents found it to pitch it to their sellers, or have they been a little reluctant to go in or nervous about how their seller is going to respond when they start to talk about Final Offer?
It's been interesting, and I would say that our sellers have actually responded better than I thought they would. We've even had sellers, we had a seller last year in his 80s who immediately embraced it and thought it was the coolest thing ever, and we sold his property successfully that way.
Yeah.
I think the challenge my agents have is actually with their colleagues. We find that the co-brokes, the buyer's agents, have struggled with it, and if they've not been exposed to it, don't understand it, are suspicious of it, don't like it, that's where I think my agents don't have an issue convincing sellers. I think they struggle to convince the co-brokes.
And look, I've heard all of the minutes. I love when people come in and they're like, "Oh, I don't want you to shop my offer," and I'm like, "Okay, I don't work for you."
Yeah.
So I'm like, my fiduciary responsibility is the seller, right? And also, guys, by the way, the seller is, or at least they were at the time, they are paying your commission too, right?
Yeah.
So you don't dictate how the deal runs here, and this is why we're doing it. And
final offer or no final offer, you're still going to shop the
we're
offer.
doing it. Yeah, you're getting shopped either way. I think the fact that sometimes if they know it's a hot if they know it may move quickly and it's priced well, they maybe get a little more nervous because it's in their face. But I look at it from the other side where it's, okay, at least I know if I present it through Final Offer, first and foremost, I know with 100% certainty the offer is being presented. And it's being presented in real time. And even if you were to start a clock, you start a clock today so you can actually dictate the amount of time that the seller has to respond, or the amount of time that the seller has an opportunity to get additional buyers or agents through the property, right? So they're just not. But again, you're right. It's more the change in the process, right?
I think so. It's new. I think one of the most exciting things about it, from my perspective, is how it empowers both buyer and seller. I know there were a lot of early concerns about it taking away the role of buyer's agent. Not true. But I think the fact that both the buyer and the seller, rightly so, has real-time visibility into what's going on with their property or with their offer, to me that is the most exciting thing. Our sellers watching the offers come in, watching the offers increase, and the time saver for you as a listing agent. Let's not forget that.
It's crazy. I can't tell you how many times where you've gone through the exercise, or I have gone through the exercise of writing an offer when I know there's not any shot that offer is going to be accepted. And or had a good enough relationship with the listing agent to say, hey, they're thinking of submitting X. Do you have any? We've got higher and it's clean and it's cash. Yeah. And I still go through the exercise of writing the offer. With Final Offer, that's all time savings. And I think, the other thing that I think will start to happen is that buyer that thinks that, hey, the thing's on for $1.1 million. Well, I'm going to offer them $1.05 million, but it's cash and we'll close quickly. And the buyer puts a big emphasis on the fact that they're paying cash, right? And they'll sort of say, I'm paying cash, so therefore I should get a deal. When they see through Final Offer that they are not getting a deal because they're cash, because there are multiple other people that are out there that are paying cash as well, that may keep these people in the game. You know what I mean? That may give them the information that they need to actually make an offer that is going to get accepted. And that's what, it's still early on, but I think that trust and that level of transparency, because I think inherently people don't trust real estate agents, right?
No, I think this is an excellent point, actually. And if you think we spend so much of our time as real estate professionals educating throughout the process our buyers and our sellers and relaying to them the feedback or giving them our advice, what Final Offer does is substantiates the information we're giving them. They can see, the seller and the buyer can see it in black and white. I'll give you a perfect example. We sold a property on Final Offer, and it had been on the market for a while. We'd had a couple of price reductions. We got an offer after a price reduction through the platform, and it was the only offer we received. And under normal circumstances, our agent would have been saying to the seller, I think this is your buyer, I think this is the offer, I think you should work with it.
Yep.
But the seller wanted to be certain nobody else was going to make an offer. And we were able to demonstrate that because we were using final offer. Nobody else made an offer. So the seller accepted that offer, comfortable. That was the best offer that was going to come in. To have that information confirmed, as it were, by final offer was so powerful. So I think
It's funny, like that exact situation, right? But then think from there. So now your seller is actually, they're happy with the lower number because they know that you did everything that you could do to get other people out there to the point where you actually showed everybody, hey, we're going to take this number unless somebody else steps up and makes a higher offer in this period of time, right? So they now know, like they're out there, the clock's out there. You've reached out to all the other buyers that have come through and seen it. They're able to come through. They all passed on it. The seller's, okay, now I know they did what they said they were going to do. I'm okay with taking it. That's a market value, right?
Yeah.
But think about from that point. So now, instead of being at a point where there's maybe potentially some friction with your seller because they felt like they undersold it, they feel better about it. They feel better about that initial offer. And think about how smooth the rest of the transaction goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you don't have a seller who thinks they undersold it, who's now, that's it, they're taking it as is, that's too good of a deal, I'm not doing anything with the home inspection, I'm not doing anything with these dates. The whole tone of the transaction changes.
Yeah. They're comfortable, they feel happy with the result, they understand that was the best result. Yeah, 100%.
That's when I'm out talking about final offer and trying to educate agents and brokers about it, like that instance right there, because I had 3 this past summer that exactly that happened, right? And there was probably a little bit of a discrepancy as to where what the seller felt the value was and what I felt the market value was, right? Yeah. And ultimately we said, hey, your number can be the final offer number, or maybe even slightly higher was the final offer number. And my number will be the seller's committed. Yeah. And they got hit. And each of the 3 occasions where it happened, I purposefully made it a point to ask them after the fact, hey, and twice they were like, hey, you know what, you were probably right. That is the market value. These things went for 2, 3, one as long as 5 days. Yeah. And we had over probably 10 to 15 showings on all the properties. And that's where they sold. And people were like, look, if you had pushed that on me day one, I would have gone to bed that night thinking, hey, did I leave money on the table?
That's right. Yep, that's right. Yeah, so final offer is a tremendous support to an agent in helping them communicate market data to their client.
To get in some ways, just to get the point across. And I think, that's a conversation where it's like, hey, it's not a magic wand where you wave it and it's going to sprinkle in multiple bids, or it's going to bring you any bids at all, unless your price. It can't. Right. It's not a platform that was designed to sell overpriced real estate, right? You still
got to do your job, right? And I think it's your colleague Tim says that all the time. You're still doing your job as an agent, and I think that's an important point to make. You're still helping your seller talk about price and terms. You're still helping your seller with strategy and negotiation. It's not, final offer isn't doing your job for you. You still got to be a skilled and sophisticated agent. And actually, that's one of the things I do like about it. I think the skilled, sophisticated agents get final offer and are successful using it.
Totally.
And I think
it's one of the things that I started to say to people. I'm like, it's not for everybody. Only the good agents are using it, right?
Only the smart ones.
Yeah. It is true. And it definitely, it changes, I feel like for me anyways, it changes the way that you think about selling the property from go. And you can develop different strategies, and it's a little bit, but I think in all of the time throughout development of final offer and throughout using final offer, as I've gone through all of the deals that I've done, the outcome with final offer has been better every single time.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah.
And so it's not, and again, it's not always multiple bids and this thing going crazy over the ask price. but there has been something within the platform that has helped lead to a smoother transaction.
Yeah.
And that for the people that use it, I think they feel the same way.
Yeah.
You know?
It speaks
But
for itself.
it does. And
Yeah.
but you're spot on with the buyer pushback. If we use final offer, then what are we doing? And I'm like, is your only role of a buyer agent writing an offer? And when you think about, like, when you're coaching your agents now, especially as we go into these times where the seller may not be able to.
Commissions are in question. Yep.
Yeah, commissions are in question, and buyers now have to, they have to come up with, what is our value proposition? How are we bringing value to the transaction? What are you saying to your agents surrounding all of this uncertainty that's looming right now?
Yeah, it's a hot topic right now. Everybody is talking about it. And I have so much to say on this subject. I'll keep my comments brief because I think it's complex, it's complicated. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it. I think my general take on things is we as an industry have to get much better about two things. I think one, talking about how we make money, talking about how commissions are paid, and also talking about what we do and what our value is. And I think we are poor, as an industry as a whole, I think we are poor at those two things. I think we're, for whatever reason, shy, embarrassed, reticent to talk to our clients about money, how we get paid. Here's this tremendous service that I provide you, but I'm embarrassed to talk to you about how I get compensated for that. And I think we have to be changing the narrative about where that commission is coming from.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the money discussion is difficult to have with a client or with the client if you don't understand what your value proposition is.
I think precisely. And that's my second point. If you don't understand what you are doing as a real estate agent, I had a recruitment meeting. Somebody's not yet licensed, but wanted a friend of a friend who wanted to talk to me about getting into real estate. And she wanted to just...
They failed in the last industry they were in.
Yeah. And she came in to talk to me about becoming a real estate agent. And in the process of having our conversation, she disclosed to me that she was looking to buy a home herself, but she wasn't using a real estate agent. She was using a family member who was an attorney that happened to have his broker's license.
Yep.
Right there and then, that told me she did not understand or value the role of a real estate agent. Now,
Right.
That's somebody, in her defense, who isn't even in the industry yet, but most agents cannot articulate their value.
Right.
And a part of that, and I have to be careful I don't get on my soapbox now, but part of that is the media doesn't do a very good job of explaining our role. The New York Times just recently talked about our role. Now that we have the internet and all these websites,
I saw that, yeah.
the New York Times said now that buyers can source their own properties. Buyers agents are really just helping with attorney recommendations or home inspection recommendations. So if the world out there thinks that our role as a buyer's agent is to give you the name of an attorney and a home inspector,
Right.
there's no hope, is there? We have to be so much better about explaining our role and what exactly we do to earn the commissions that we earn.
Anytime that if I'm buying real estate out of state or even in state out of market, I am going to find the top real estate agents that's
in that
there
market.
because I want to understand what's going on in the market, where I want to be, what I should be looking for, what I should be looking to avoid, all of these things that are so important. And my rebuttal to everybody on the just on the final offer piece of it, like with being able to offer buyers being able to put their own offers together, it's like all of the value that buyers agents bring to the transaction leads up to them getting comfortable enough to make an offer. And then you've got to, and then the offer process of it happens, and you win, you lose, you do whatever. But then you've still got all of these other sets of contingencies that you have to work through in order to get the thing to the closing table. So there's another whole set of problem solving. There's another skill set that's involved there that people lose track of. And then post offer, put a term in there as landing the plane, right? Because you've got a
Right.
whole different set of issues or potential issues to work through and get to the closing table. And I think good agents do a good job because they streamline the process. They let people know, hey,
Yeah.
here's what's left. Here's what we still have to get through in order to get to the closing table, and here's what we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. And then also, I think they provide creative solutions and can be a voice of reason. And sometimes in a transaction that gets highly emotional.
Without a question,
so,
I think you made a really great point that the point at which a buyer is making an offer, they're making an offer because they feel comfortable enough to make an offer, they're educated about their options, they feel informed about the market, and that is because their agent has done all of that work. The writing of the offer is the simple part. It's getting to the offer, and then everything that happens between offer and closing table. And you and I know it's a rare transaction that doesn't have some bumps. If you've got a skilled agent that's going to help the buyer through those bumps.
Yeah, and look, and if you do, I think when you do get into the final offer, if you get into multiple bids in the final offer, it's now you have the answers to the test, right? And so it's just a matter of whether or not you see the value. And I think there's a level of consulting that goes in to that with your buyer, whether it's like, hey, if this is a 2-year hold, maybe you let this one go. This thing's got escalated pretty high and you can always get the next one. Or you're going to be there for 20 years, so you pay another extra $50,000. It's not going to matter really at the end of the day, I think. So all of those talking points and all of those years, I think, of experience in going through these transactions, and that's at the core of, I think, what good agents bring to transaction. But I think the other side of it too, though, is just when you think about buyer agency, like why was buyer agency was brought in so that there was a level of transparency where the buyer knew who was representing them in the transaction. And
that's right. You and I got into the business when buyer agency was a relatively new concept. And the first property I ever bought, I had no buyer's agent. The agent that worked with me, wrote the offer up for me, picked up the phone and talked to me, was a sub-agent of the seller. I had no representation. Probably wasn't explained to me at the time. That was something I realized after the fact, once I became a real estate agent. But buyer agency was a relatively new concept because consumers pushed back and said, I want representation in this transaction.
That brings to, you bring up another great point, is no one, if you don't understand what your value proposition is, it's tough to have a call or a meeting with somebody and say, hey, you should work with me and here's why. I feel like a lot of those conversations just go straight to, hey, the seller's paying the commission anyways, so you might as well have me here on your side, right?
I'll take you to see property. And that's
I'll open the door for you, and then I'll show up for my check. And there's way too much of that going on. But as much as buyer agency got put in place, no sooner had buyer agency been put in place to give full transparency to who is representing who, and then the internet comes along and now everything's cloudy again.
That's probably true. Yep.
And it is, because it's all of these lead generation websites, your Zillows, your Trulias, your Redfin, where people have no idea who they're getting put in touch with.
No.
You know?
No, Zillow. I don't think we should talk about Zillow.
I have no idea how they made that type of a deal where it's, we'll give you all our listings so that you can go and take people's data that they're essentially taking for free and go sell leads that you drive off that data to the competitors of the listing agents.
Right. That's right. No, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. And frankly, anybody that's clicking on a Zillow listing to find their real estate agent is probably not a good quality lead. But no, it's nonsense. I truthfully think this commission lawsuit is a good thing for our industry, because I think we're going to see a rise to quality. Because if you're an agent that understands and does your job well, you're able to articulate that. I think getting better, and I think if you're smart and you understand how commissions are paid, I think we need to stop saying, don't worry about it, the seller pays my commission anyway. That's not true. It never has been. I don't think anything is really going to change except we are going to be forced into getting better, talking about ourselves as real estate professionals and talking about how we are compensated.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's where it should head. I think it starts at the top, right? I think whether or not it's been the National Association of Realtors or anybody else, but the guidelines to be able to get a real estate license need to change, right? Like the requirements
Yeah.
need to change. It's just the barrier of entry is far too low,
So
which is why you
low.
have so many
Yeah.
people in there, and I think that's why people's perception of the industry is the way that it is, right? It's no one values real estate
Right.
agents because there's more bad ones out there than good
Yeah.
ones.
I think there should be some responsibility on the part of broker owners and sales managers to be keeping a closer eye on quality control and making sure.
But I think half of the, like, you're an anomaly. Half of the, at least here in Boston, I'd say half of the smaller or the boutique or agencies that are out there, like the people that are leading them don't have the experience that you have, can't
Right.
offer the level of education that you do for your agents. That's another one where, okay, now you got your real estate license, your salesperson's license. All you have to do is hold it in good standing for 2 years, and now you can start a company.
Yeah, no, and also
So,
a lot of the broker owners are selling, and I don't sell anymore. I'm not working directly with buyers and
right.
sellers alone anymore, and I think that makes a big difference too. I think the leaders in our industry need to be better about maintaining better standards, and that isn't happening. Most real estate firms are so large that the managers, the brokers, just
Yeah,
can't possibly keep track. The volume is too high. The agent body
right.
is too high.
It is a problem, but I do hope that there are some changes that come out of this, and I'm with
Yeah,
you. I think I don't even mind having all of the commission dollars. The commission dollars on the sales side, on the list side, are totally transparent with the seller, right? Why shouldn't the
right.
buyer's agents have transparency into how much their agents get
Yeah.
being paid to represent them as a buyer's agent,
Yeah, I
right?
think it would
Then
be a better situation if they did. Right.
And then the other thing that I think no one likes to talk about is that as I've gone through and talked with so many agents, it seems like the majority of them do it. Where does a variable rate commission fall in all of this, right?
Right.
There's an MLS field for it, right? That the agent can see that if there's a variable rate,
Right.
but then it doesn't even tell you, but that's where it starts. It says, yeah, it's variable rate. But then no
But
one's
it
going
doesn't
to
tell
tell
you
you
what
if
that
they've got
means.
direct buyers.
No. Right.
It doesn't, yeah, and no one knows what
No.
it means, right? And so
No.
I think if there's more transparency on the with the consumer, both on where the commission dollars are being paid and who's being paid what throughout the life of the transaction, I think at the end of the day, people walk away from the transactions happier.
And to bring this full circle, Kevin, final offer is going to do a lot to also increase transparency around commissions. Like, you're on the cutting edge of it. It's
Well,
almost like you were set up to handle this situation. The
we
transparency around
were,
the
but
commissions.
the everything that's going on, that's right place, right time, right? Like where we
Yeah,
come out, but the issues that you and I are talking about, these have been around forever,
of
right?
course.
Which was what final offer was built on. Okay, what are the
Right.
problems that you've seen in the course of 20 years in real estate, and how can
Right.
we try and build something to solve for that? That's I don't know. I would like to see all of that happen. I'd like to see all the kind of cards on the table so people know exactly what it is. And there's been so many times over the course of 20 years here where I think the decisions were made on deals that weren't in the best interest of
Interest of the client
seller
all the
or the
time.
client. It's always the
Yep.
agent who is
Yep.
the one that, and
Yep.
now, like the agent, if I tell you to take a deal as a seller and I tell you this is why I think you should take it, you have no idea what backstory is there. You have no idea
Right.
what other buyers are out there. And it's not losing
No,
control. It's just
it's
more
actually
informed.
increasing control. But it's increasing
Yes.
control. I can't tell you how many times 2 years ago when the market was a very different market and our buyers were dealing with multiple offers. My agents were writing up so many offers that weren't coming together. On a couple of occasions, one of my top producing agents told me that he felt that his offer had not actually been presented to the seller. Can you imagine? He was not confident that the offer had actually been presented.
The sad thing is, yes, and I've met with,
Happens all the time.
now over, probably 350 agents I've met with, right? And I would always say to Tim, I'm like, you guys have no idea what we have to deal with in this industry at times. And we've gone into some top producing agents, and some of them even here locally, where they're like, yeah, sometimes I just don't present offers. If I don't, and I'm like, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
We walked out of some of the meetings, and Tim looked at me and he was like, if they were in any other industry, like if they were in finance, not only would they wouldn't lose they would go to jail, right?
Yeah. No, it's honestly, it's not okay. It's not okay, and it makes my blood boil. And my agents tease me that I'm a bit of a Girl Scout, but I am, because we're dealing with other people's money. And there is so little regulation in terms of this sort of thing. It's not okay, in every sense of the word.
You guys must see it more too, because you're small. You're a smaller boutique, right? So when the market gets humming, like you're coming in and you're showing all the big companies listings. You guys you do a ton you work on both sides of the business, but on the buy side, you guys are making offers as an outsider most of the time, right?
That's right. Yeah. No, it's frustrating. We know what's happening. There are certain firms in the city who shall remain nameless, but we both know who they are. They're incentivized to sell their listings, and it's not okay. Because, again, and I say this, whenever any of my agents ask me a question, they're having a dilemma, and they ask me a question about how to handle a situation, the first question I ask them is, who is your client? Let's get back to basics. Who's your client? And what is in their best interest? How do we deal with this situation in the best interest of your client? And usually the answer is fairly straightforward once we talk about it from that perspective.
Right. No, I know. It's once you can get in that in those types of talk tracks and get in that mindset and doing what's best for your seller, because I hate saying it, I feel like there's far too many situations where I get into it. And when you're in the middle of these situations, like instinctively, like you have a gut that something's not going right? Yeah, because communication is usually streamlined up to a point, and then all of a sudden there's a delay or something happens, and it's. I always feel like when it's happening, and it's still happening.
And the sad thing is, Kevin, here we are having a conversation about our frustrations with our own industry and our own colleagues. But I think Final Offer is a great way to combat this and to stop this happening. There's a lot of dishonesty also happening.
There is.
So
and you get away when meeting with these people, like the people that are like adamantly against it. In 2 minutes, I can tell you exactly why they're against it.
Right.
Because
I know what you're saying.
Allow them to continue to do what they're doing, and therefore, my way is better. You know what I mean? Because I get to choose who I want to do business with or who I don't want to do business with. So
just think about that.
And if their clients ever knew, we had one last year with people where my buyer got broken out of the deal. We lost in a 3-bid situation. The seller called me a month later and is asking me why we didn't resubmit, and apparently the buyer had woken up with buyer's remorse, backed out of the deal. So now it was us and one other offer, and we were $100,000 higher. And the agent, who I had worked with for 10 plus years, right, doesn't even call me back.
Yeah,
doesn't even call me back. And the seller took $100,000 less than they needed to. That happens. It happens too often, and I think people wonder why the industry has a bad. When you mentioned that your client that's 80 years old that got the platform right away. At one point in time, I had 3 or 4 listings on the market, and the average, all the sellers were between 60 and 74.
That's awesome.
And when you think about, like, when we initially had thought about Final Offer, you'd be like, all right, you're definitely going to get the millennial, the younger buyer that will come in because they consume everything like this. But when I started to think about why the empty nester was so attracted to it, the only thing that I could come up with was that they, like, when they were going through Final Offer, there was one transaction in their life that they had always questioned.
Probably had
Right?
a bad experience.
They had a bad experience somewhere along the line.
Yeah. That's a really good point, actually. They remember a bad experience
They do.
and final. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. We
But
should
the
write a
big,
book, Kevin.
but the biggest, no, well, but then like when you think about how has the industry been able to go on for this long of a period of time the same way? It's only because people, they don't do it every day. We do it every
Right.
day.
Yeah.
They only transact maybe once every 5 years, once every 10, maybe once in their lifetime, right?
Right.
So they don't do it enough and they walk away from it not feeling great about it, but they're in their new house that they're excited about
Yeah.
and they can figure out how to move on.
They don't know that's not the way every real estate transaction goes. So,
Totally.
yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
selfishly, at the end of the day, having only done this in my lifetime, you know, you do want to clean up the industry because that
Yeah.
being said, like there are so many good agents there are so many good smart agents that are in this and they're doing things the right way and they're working hard for their clients, and it's those people shouldn't feel like they can't hang their head high for
Right.
doing what they've done for as long as they've done, because the industry's got a black eye from people not doing the right things.
And wouldn't it be great if we could all feel really proud of this industry that we call ours?
I know. Listen, thank you so much for your time. As always, it's
Absolutely. Always a
sure.
pleasure to solve the world's problems with
It's
you,
really
Kevin.
no. Next
Yeah.
time I'll just swing over to the office and we can do it there.
I think I can see your office right behind me.
I know. So what are you seeing before I let you go? What do you think 24 is going to bring in the market here downtown?
I'm optimistic. I think the interest rates, as the Feds have said, are going to come down in 2024. But I think we saw an uptick in activity just with the slight decrease over the last couple of weeks. And I think people are just going to become accustomed to them. There's a lot of people
Right.
that, yeah. So
Yeah.
I truthfully think we're going to have a busy 2024. I think it's going to be different. I think in some respects, I think the industry is, or the market has normalized. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think when everybody has a little bit more time to review their options and put in some contingencies, I don't think that's a bad thing, certainly for buyers. So I remain optimistic.
I know. I'm with you. I hope we're able to shake free some inventory, and it just doesn't seem to be much of it, especially in the price
Yeah.
points that seem to be moving the most.
I think we will, and I think if we have a mild winter, which they're forecasting, I always say the weather has a lot to do with our market. And last January, we had a really busy January last year because it was mild. So
There's no
there's no snow. It is a presidential election year, of course, so that can make things a little unsettled. But
Yeah.
we all
I'm
need
like
something other than that to focus on. So let's focus on our real estate transaction.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. I know how
Thank
busy you are.
you.
And
I appreciate the opportunity, and we'll talk soon.
all right.